terrific.
The president has just written on Truth Social that Mike Waltz is going to become the new U.S. ambassador to the United Nations.
Well, there
Therefore,
you
no
go.
longer the National Security
Fabulous.
Advisor. And in addition to that, he says that in the interim, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as National Security Advisor while continuing his strong leadership at the State Department. Do you know how long he's going to be serving in both roles?
It is clear that I just heard this from you. This is the magic.
No heads up that this was coming today?
I have some insights as to the potential of certain things that might happen. But when the president, and this of course is all presidential decisions, right? So I'm with the State Department. It is, as I think would be clear to all of you, you don't want to get ahead of your skis in drawing conclusions or speculating about what may occur. And you can have a general sense of what's possible, and then you see that manifest usually. But I think the one thing I've learned is that things don't happen until the president says they're going to happen. So the fact that is, which was obviously Truth Social. Yeah, so that is the miracle of modern technology and the social media.
Enough of the stumbling and bumbling. It's embarrassing that the spokeswoman for the State Department found out about the firing of Mike Waltz as National Security Advisor from a reporter that found out about it from a Truth Social post.
So that is an exciting moment here. I think that, as I know Secretary Rubio, this is a man who, as I think you all know, has worn several hats from day one in managing the nature of what's happened here at the State Department, at USAID. He's someone who's well known by the president. The president makes perfect assessments about who would implement his agenda. And in this case, he's chosen certainly the secretary and Mr. Waltz to facilitate his agenda moving forward. Not entirely surprising, I have to say, and good news for the American people.
You said you had some insights that this might happen. Could you just
well, I
elaborate
think
on that a little bit?
No, I can't. But thanks for asking.
Do you have any?
Embarrassing and actually dangerous. This president makes decisions without any thought about how the things work or how well the people he puts into place can do the job, because he doesn't know how anything works and appoints people based solely on obedience. All he really cares about is sloppily covering up his constant bungles.
Why was Mike Waltz let go?
So he wasn't let go. He is being made ambassador to the United Nations, which of course is a Senate-confirmed position. I think you can make a good argument that it's a promotion. But we brought Mike on to do some serious reforms of the National Security Council. He has done that. I like Mike. I think he's a great guy. He's got the trust of both me and the president. But we also thought that he'd make a better UN ambassador as we get beyond this stage of the reforms that we've made to the National Security Council. You saw the president announce that Marco Rubio is going to step in as interim leader of the National Security Council. I think the media wants to frame this as a firing. Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Waltz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly, the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
Yeah, who would have thought J.D. Vance would agree with anything Donald Trump does, no matter how little sense it makes? Nothing like being taken from an extremely important position as National Security Advisor and being nominated for another position that requires Senate confirmation, by the way. J.D. Vance is just as bad at lying as Trump is.
Do you believe Vice President Vance, his claim that Mike Waltz is leaving his job not because of the signal scandal, but because the White House wanted to promote him?
Of course not. I mean, I think it really just shows how little about national security J.D. Vance knows. If you took 100 people anywhere in this country who know anything about national security, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, and asked them objectively, do you think National Security Advisor or UN Ambassador is the more important job? I will bet a small amount, I will bet a large amount of money that 90 out of 100, if not 99 out of 100, would say National Security Advisor is the more important job.
By the way, you have a lot of credibility on this, given that you've held both of these positions. So in your opinion, having been the U.S. Ambassador to the UN, you say the National Security Advisor is a more important job.
I don't think there's any question about it. I love being UN ambassador. Don't get me wrong, yeah. but it doesn't compare.
When working in the atmosphere of zero accountability and zero concern for actually doing their jobs in service of the American people, J.D. Vance can be as clueless as his answer is on this being a promotion. None of it has to make any sense. He can say this is a promotion while claiming Waltz wasn't kicked out over the Signal scandal because that was somehow a non-story.
Was it a direct result of the Signal chat? I mean, you were on that chat and we saw the fallout from it. Is this a result of that?
No, it's not, Brett. I mean, look, what we came into the administration, and of course the president in his first term had some serious issues with the National Security Council. He said, Mike, you need to go in here, fire, frankly, a lot of people who aren't loyal to my agenda, who we think aren't even loyal to the American people, bring in the right collection of people to actually make the National Security Council function. And Mike has done that. And now it's time for Mike to do something else because he's done the job that I think he was asked to do. If the president wanted to fire him over the Signal thing, which, by the way, was a total nothing burger of a story, he would have just done it. But he actually decided it's better for Mike to be in this new role. He's given Mike the new role. That's it.
Okay, so according to J.D. Vance, the role of the National Security Advisor in the Trump administration was to basically be a temporary HR manager that hires loyalists and fires smart people that can recognize a dumpster fire when they see one. They think you're that stupid.
I think what Caitlin Collins just said about Trump making the decision this morning is interesting. That was my sense that this news that Waltz was imminently on his way out, not that he was just a dead man walking and would go maybe in August or at some point so that nobody could claim Trump had bowed to media or Democratic political pressure. And somehow it took on a life of its own, and Trump wanted to find a way to ease the passage. They had a vacancy given Elise Stefanik's nomination had been pulled, and somebody said, maybe Trump himself, hey, why don't we give the UN job to Mike Waltz? It was also pretty clear that they had not picked a successor, whatever the state of play in Waltz's departure was. An organized White House would announce the successor immediately. And the fact that they didn't have a successor showed they weren't ready to make the announcement. And to have Marco Rubio serve on an interim basis is just absolutely bizarre.
The only way to believe the stories coming from this administration about these decisions is to detach yourself from how literally any and everything else works in the world of responsible adults. They didn't even have anyone in mind to replace Waltz, and didn't tell the State Department spokesperson because Trump did once he was finally convinced it was time, by Laura Loomer of all people, who I'm going to get to in a minute. But it makes you wonder if Trump is trying to stash Mike Waltz in another position to keep him from becoming another former member of his administration, like John Bolton there, that decides to speak out about the behind-the-scenes disaster that happens every day. It's a disaster that Waltz embodied after it was reported that he's so addicted to his unsecured Signal app, he was checking in on his chats with Vance, Rubio, Steve Witkoff, and Tulsi Gabbard while Trump was having his North Korean-style cabinet meeting the other day. It looks like he was trying to hide his secret notes under the desk like a kid in school, but Dum-Dum forgot that there were tons of cameras surrounding the spectacle meant to praise Trump.
Mr. President, the last 4 years, the world experienced a total lack of zero leadership under Biden, and then we've had 100 days of your leadership with respect, with strength, starting with there'll be all hell to pay if you don't let our people go. Dozens, over 40 Americans have come home under your leadership. Far more terrorists are no longer threatening the homeland under your leadership. Pulling this great team together, Mr. President, everything from revitalizing shipyards to cyber to space, that takes this entire team working together. It's an honor to serve you in this administration, and I think the world is far better, far safer for it.
Again, they want you to believe he did all that ass-kissing and nonsense explanations for his screw-ups over the Signal app, only to suddenly be nominated to be ambassador to the UN. The bad news is that crazed Trumper Laura Loomer keeps revealing that she worked hard to get him fired.
The other week, when you were able to, basically put in some suggestions that President Trump fire the national security apparatus, and your input outweighed the national security advisor, Mike Waltz. Did you express any concerns to him about Mike Waltz?
My focus was more on his deputy, Alex Wong, and the other individuals who Michael Waltz himself personally proclaimed to the president that he personally vetted. And so my concern was, well, you know, if Michael Waltz is the NSC director or the NSC advisor, and he is saying that he's personally vetting these individuals who have a history of anti-Trump remarks and anti-Trump associations, why would he be signing off on them? And then it reminded me of a video that I've saved in my phone for many years of Michael Waltz on video speaking out against President Trump when he first ran for president, accusing him of being against service members. And so, you know, I was about to show this video to President Trump, and then Michael Waltz, you know, walked into the Oval Office. So, you know, there goes my conversation completely interrupted. You know, I could play the video.
He essentially called anyone who was captured in combat a loser. It's something that I just personally can't stomach.
He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured.
Don't let Trump fool you. Look into his real record and stop Trump now.
He essentially called anybody captured in combat a loser. It's something that I just personally, you know, can't stomach. So if you can't stomach it, why do you want to work for President Trump? If you can't stomach it, why do you want to work in the administration?
To continue to believe this administration has a shred of consciousness or responsibility to the country, you'd have to ignore the 99% of ridiculous things they show us on a daily basis, including the decision to give Marco Rubio Mike Waltz's job as if he isn't already ignoring the 3 to 4 other jobs that he's been given by the president, who admitted he tosses everything he can't comprehend at Marco, which obviously ends up being damn near everything.
Marco Rubio, unbelievable. Unbelievable, Marco. When I have a problem, I call up Marco. He gets it solved. He gets it solved.
He praises Rubio for solving his problems, but does anyone stop to ask if it's possible for one guy to carry out all these responsibilities effectively?
The National Security Advisor is the point person on national security issues between the entire U.S. government and the President of the United States, and vice versa.
And it seems as though that person is really the glue between the president and the government and the executive branch that will execute strategy. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will serve as interim national security advisor. Henry Kissinger held both roles back in the 70s, but looking at history, is something like this really sustainable? We know it's interim, but what will happen in the meantime?
I don't think it is sustainable because the Secretary of State is the channel between the 8 billion people in the world and the U.S. government. And the National Security Advisor is a channel between the U.S. government and the president. And I think there's just too much information to keep track of every day. These are both 70 or 80 hour a week jobs. And to keep all the information straight, to have people who work for you know what the boss wants, becomes tremendously difficult. And I think while the president may want Marco Rubio to execute, it's going to be hard to just keep track and keep on top of all the information that's coming his way.